Still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us break.
What's that you said coming over you? You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters Talk of the Toon with me and Sid from Songs from the Attic. How are you, Sid?
Very good, mate. Yourself?
All good, mate. All good. Clean shaven, ready for the cup game, which is taking place on Wednesday night. And this is a pre-recorded show. Couldn't do it on Tuesday and decided to record it on Monday because there was no chance of us having any, transfers coming in, which we wouldn't be able to talk about, Sid. We'll come to the transfer window or lack of activity in the transfer window in due course. But let's look back at the Fulham game, which you weren't at, mate. You weren't there.
No, I wasn't. No, I was. I had to take my daughter down to Loughborough Uni, so my youngest. So me and my wife just went down to Loughborough for the weekend. Strange place, beautiful houses, but yeah. So I listened to it on a listen along thing, whatever, watch along, whatever you want to call it. So I just listened to it on that, and then I watched the highlights when I got back yesterday. So
all right, then we'll give us. Give us. I'll give you my view, and then yeah. You tell us what you thought from the highlights. I mean, look, statistically, Newcastle United were in that game 100%. It wasn't a one-sided game. It wasn't like the Bournemouth game. It wasn't embarrassing, as some people have called it out. Some disgraceful comments on social media aimed at Eddie Howe, and of course the racism which nobody tolerates against Joe Willock. Disgraceful. Nobody like that deserves a place in our fan base. But getting back to the football, the game wasn't as bad as people are making out. And the stats prove it. Newcastle and Fulham more or less had the same percentage in the game, same amount of shots on target, same amount of saves made. Newcastle, obviously were in the game and they were ahead in the game. They were 1-0 up, and missed chances is what that game was about. Missing opportunities in front of goal. Joe Willock missed an opportunity Alexander Isak hit the bar with a wonderful, wonderful self-made opportunity. But he also missed one in the first half. I dare say, most strikers would have struggled to get anything out of that one. He opted to try and go first time instead of stopping it and controlling it. I don't think he would have had time. I think the defenders would have been in on him. Tonali was offside when he hit the bar, but again, it was a wonderful opportunity. Murphy's goal was a good goal. And ultimately, we were all sitting on our hands at the match, and this is probably the most disappointing thing. Certain parts of our ground are designated singing areas, standing areas. You're expecting some atmosphere, and it was one of those games where nobody turned up. Nobody turned up. The fans were quiet, and people say, yeah, but it sounded great on the TV. Yeah, because it depends where the microphone's placed. Fans were terrible at the weekend. They really were. They weren't supporting the team. We'll support you evermore, the song goes. Nobody was supporting the team. Place where I sit, nobody sings at any time during any games. Very, very rarely do they get up. Only time that they get up is to go to the toilet, go to the bar, and they have to get up if somebody sings "Stand Up If You Hate Sunderland." But ultimately, nobody sings where we are, and that played its part as well. So Fulham, I know mugs. I told everybody last week on here what their away form was. I mentioned it 2 or 3 times that I wasn't confident and I felt 2-2 was going to be the scoreline. And I was right to be pessimistic because Fulham are no mugs and they proved it at the weekend. Newcastle paid the price by the out of shape finishing, which has happened against Everton. It's happened against Brighton. I could go on with a list of teams that we've not West Ham we've not scored against, and we've either drawn the game or we've lost the game, and that's disappointing. And it's always more disappointing when it's at home, and we always seem to have this little phase where we lose games at home, games which on paper should be winnable games. But you know what? I didn't leave the ground disappointed. Maybe it was because I was pessimistic before the game and I thought I was expecting it. And with hindsight, what people can say tiredness, they can say this, they can say that. It does, maybe it's come out now because we're pre-recording this on Monday. Maybe Joe Linton has an injury. We'll probably find out more about that at the press conference. Walking around, it looks like with a brace on. People saying he's been playing injured. He certainly hasn't played well the last 3 games. He has, by his own standards. But overall, it wasn't as bad as people are making out on social media. It was a poor performance by the fans, and generally speaking, it's not the best preparation for a cup semi-final second leg, despite being 2-0 up. We'll come to that in the second part of the show. But you watched it on TV. So, what was your views on the highlights that you watched?
It was pretty poor. it was what I got, but I'd had a few drinks the day before, and then I listened. I decided to listen along, and then I watched it when I got back home, when I drove home the following day. So it's one of those things. I don't watch much of the day if Newcastle get beat. I just can't bring myself to do it. It's too painful. And so I recorded Sky, watched the highlights, watched the 30 minutes or so of it. And it was strange. We missed some really simple chances. The Joe Willett one springs to mind. I think that would have finished the game off. I thought Tonali's shot was unbelievable. It was a great shot. I think the person who got the ball afterwards was offside, hence the fact it was called offside. And that was unlucky. It's just a swing of the foot and it was a great shot. But we just, as I say, we just seemed not able to finish. It was a little lackluster. I thought there were some poor performances from what I've listened to and what I've read. Some players are a little bit of a concern, but I think the biggest issue for me is the lack of depth on the bench. There's nobody who can come on and change a game. We haven't got a game changer. Yes, we've got good, honest players, but we don't have a player who can come on and do something a little bit unusual, unlock a defence, do something, shoot from 25 yards or whatever. It just seems to. We've got like for like players, nobody a little bit different. And I really think we could really do with somebody. And I said this last week, Newcastle won't buy anybody now, of course, it's too late. But it's just, it could be to the detriment of where Newcastle end up at the end of the season, that if they'd splashed a bit of money on a player, where we end up in the league could have maybe made up financially and also in terms of Europe. The costs that we have to outlay for a specific player. you know. And I talk about Cherky, and I know he's not got a great reputation, which is probably why we're not in front. But players like that, somebody who can do something a little bit unusual, like Hatton Ben Arthur type of player, you know, somebody a little bit spectacular, can change the game, bring it up. But just as importantly, we need somebody to freshen up the dressing room. And Howe's used the phrase stale, and it is. It's really, you know, we'll go 4 windows by the time we get to the summer since we've bought anybody. I mean, I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand the whole finances thing of it, because I'm struggling to understand how we've not got any money. You know, I appreciate the whole we're going to have to sell somebody for bought Mark Gay, who Spurs apparently have bid 70 million for today, 70, and he's not been great this season and has been turned down, according to Ben Jacob. But I just sort of I'd despair. Where's the money? Where's the money? You know, it's I can't comprehend it. We've gone and we've come out of the transfer window weaker than when we went in, which should never be the situation. Should never be the situation. We've sold a player who's not been given a chance as a centre half, Lloyd Kelly, and wishing him well. He's not been given a proper chance. He's not had a run of games. You know, he's been in and out. That's not a run of games. You know, people can go, oh, he's rubbish, this, that, and the other, but we've not seen him. We've not seen a consecutive number of games to make a mind up properly. And as I say, I keep saying this as well, Bournemouth fans raved about him and said he was an England quality player. And for other clubs to go in and spend 20-odd million, he must be pretty tasty, you know. And Juventus of all teams, you know, one of the great teams. And he also did a job when we played at Arsenal. He came on and showed up that defence at the end and made it like a wall, basically, where Arsenal couldn't get through. Could he be the difference on Wednesday? We don't know. So I find that a little bit disappointing. Miggy, I have no problem with, absolutely fine. Yes, we might be a little bit short on the right, but my personal view is he offered very, very little by the end, like, you know, and I don't see that as a big deal, if I'm being brutally honest. But we need somebody to come in. We need somebody to come in, and it isn't going to happen. So we're considerably weaker, and we had nothing on the bench to come on. I mean, Joe Willett came on and was terrible, you know, and the lad's confidence is gone. Can I just mention the racist issue as well that you mentioned? I hope these people are arrested and charged. I really do. Absolutely, obviously from my perspective as well, absolutely abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. You know, not having that at all. But the lad's confidence is gone. He's looking a shadow of the player that he was, and there's just nothing on the bench there. You think, oh, that's good, is it? You know, I mean, Barnes isn't fit yet. You know, Wilson, how many games are we going to get out of Callum Wilson? Nobody can go confidently and say, oh, he's going to come back and play the rest of the season. You know, it's highly unlikely. I wish it weren't, and I'm sure the lad himself does that as well. You know, but his body's just given up on him, unfortunately for him. We've just got in my opinion, we've got a terrific first 11 when fully fit, and we can go toe to toe with anybody when we're on form. But you can't remain plateaued out at that form all of the time. You just can't. So you need to be able to shift it around and change it up. As you say, Joe Linton's clearly been carrying a knock for a few weeks now. Clearly, he's lost 5-10%. 5-10% is a massive amount as a footballer. You know, because we're playing the margins of 2 and 3%, not 10%. Yeah. So he's clearly being affected, and he's not quite that player that we love. Let's be honest. So have we got anybody who can replace him? Miley maybe, but he's a different type of player. I certainly wouldn't put Sean Longstaff in there, but I'm sure Sean can do a job, but he's not the same sort of player. And there's nothing. We're just under the first 11. It's really weak. It's really weak.
That was the big problem. That was the big problem on Saturday. We didn't have anything on the bench to change positively. We didn't have anybody to come on. And I agree with you. If Miggy hadn't gone and he'd been on the bench, would Miggy have changed it? Yeah. No, definitely not, because he's a shadow of the player that he was a couple of seasons ago. And you know, there's a lot of effort still in him, but you know, the capabilities of playing Premier League football at the top level just isn't there. William Asula, young lad, learning the trade, learning the game, learning to train with the likes of the Isaacs, and the Gordons, etc. He's not in their league. I don't know whether he ever will. I don't know whether he ever will be,
because he's 21, 22. I don't know. I think he's in that area.
He's still young.
He's still young, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because of the fact that look at what happened to Lewis Hall. All right, and we all go, what's going on, and then obviously Lewis Hall turns into a world beater. So I think we all have to give Eddie Howe that sort of, we have to give him that leeway. And the Sula's season's next season, and if it doesn't happen, then you move him on, because at that age you've got to make a breakthrough. Look at the lad at Ipswich. He's Delap scoring for fun. He looks a proper player, and he's about 18, 19 and built like a proper bloke, and he's built like a tank. And Sula is, built really, really well. He's got all of the attributes. But at the minute,
Ferguson, obviously, he's moved from Brighton.
Ferguson's another one, and he's a strange one because the Brighton fans some of them I've read are quite pleased, and I think it was only 2 years ago we were talking about him as being possibly the next Alan Shearer type of player, and they were talking £100 million and stuff for him, and now his value's plummeted. So yeah, but I would have took a chance on him. I would have took a chance on him for loan. That whether Brighton would have given him out to Newcastle is another matter, mind you. I think that's probably a situation they would have said no to. But yeah, I'm just so disappointed. Why did we go for a loan? I don't understand. I've seen we have to get 70% in terms of the wages, in terms of outgoings and all the rest of it. And we're at 68 apparently financially, so we're dead close to the wire. And I appreciate there are teams like Aston Villa who are like 93, 94%. Aston Villa will have to sell players at the end of June. It will be a fire sale at Aston Villa, absolutely nailed on. And what they're doing, buying Marcus Rashford on loan on those wages, even if it's 70%, that's 200 grand. That's
crazy.
That's a hell of a risk. And according to Man United, they're putting out that it goes up to 90% a certain amount of games he plays.
Wow!
So it's a hell of a risk. They will have a fire sale come the end of June.
I mean, it was strange they decided to sell Duran. I mean, I know he's a 21-year-old. He's a young lad. Ultimately, he's got the world ahead of him. His career ahead of him.
Ollie Watkins is lad though, Steve. The fact that
that's it, isn't it? That's it. You've got Ollie Watkins, who's 28, who looks injured, by the way. I mean, he went off against Wolves, and he looks like he could be out for 4 weeks, but with that kind of injury. And they've sold him, so they brought Rashford in, and that's a hell of a gamble. It is a hell of a gamble, and as you say, a fire sale. So does that make you feel happier about the way Newcastle are doing business if in the summer Newcastle go out and spend 200, 300 million?
Yeah, I suppose it does, but it could be to the detriment of qualifying for Champions League or even Europe. And normally, I've said earlier on this year that Eddie Howe should lose his job if Newcastle don't qualify for Europe. I'm not going to say that now because he's been given no help whatsoever in order to secure that position. You can only do the best with regards to what you've got out there. And he's not been given anything in terms of the tools to do the job. So I'm not going to do that now, Whereas, sorry, my phone's going off. I'm waiting for an important call. I do apologise, but he's been given nothing. What's he supposed to do? What's he supposed to do? I'm thinking they're expecting him just to carry on pulling off this miracle. And what I'll say to fans who are moaning about him, okay, and I've been one of them, all right, is look at the last 3 years where he comes game for game in terms of the charts. He's in the top 4. All right, considering our spend against some of those other clubs, against Arsenal, who spent a fortune. People seem to forget that. Liverpool, Man City, and all the rest of it. We're 4th. We're ahead of Spurs, who've just gone and splashed another few bob on a few players. And all the rest of them, we're ahead of all of these guys, ahead of Chelsea. And so he's, considering the tools that he's got, he's done a remarkable job. That to me tells me he can do and carry on do that job and do a better job with players given to him. But at the minute, it's a big ask. I genuinely think it's a big ask to carry on without help. And the word stale really does spring to mind, and it's really quite worrying. I genuinely think if we got 2 more players, I would put money on us qualifying for Champions League. I really would. And I think even Europe might be well at risk now. I think it's that big a deal. We've got to rely on Gordon staying fit. You've got to rely on Isak staying fit. My God, what happens if Isak gets injured? Bear in mind, his record's not the greatest. It's not terrible, by the way. Not like some people are making them out. But it's not the best. So it is a worry. It is a worry, and you can't rely on Asula to come in and do a job. And Gordon, let's be honest, not good enough up front on his own.
No, I mean, that's the question that he was asked prior to the Fulham game, and he alluded to the fact that Asula might not be recognisable as a number 9 only, and that he could be a wide player. So it already gives you that answer that, Asula is probably going to be played on the right.
Yes.
If required, if things took a turn for the worse for Murphy, for example. I mean, there was a concern over certain players again from people at the weekend. I mean, Livramento looked shattered before he started. He looked shattered before half time. I thought Howard took him off.
Steve, I think it's time to drop him and give him a few weeks off and bring Trippier in. And I'm sorry, I don't want to hear Trippier. I don't want to hear Trippier being sold. I seriously don't want to hear that. I think that.
Well, of course, I mean, we're pre-recording this show, so he might have gone by the time people watch this on Tuesday.
Well done. You've been a star asset.
Yeah, but the problem is that that's what happens when you haven't got enough cover in the squad. There was a lot of people trying to take a target off our hands, which I think if it was in the summer, I think a lot of people would have gone for that. But
it'll happen.
Mitchell's clearly got a plan in action, and Howe's just got to go with it because Howe doesn't get to see it. I mentioned about the fans earlier on, Sid. I mean, you weren't at the match at the weekend, but you've been to the games this season. Do you get where I'm coming from on that? The supporters now just it's not just at Newcastle, is it? It's
absolutely not.
Down the country.
City, it's like a morgue. It's definitely. I mean, the fact that Man City start singing "Is this the Emirates?" You know what I mean? It's quite a funny chant. I do like that. But it's definitely died down without a shadow of a doubt. The atmosphere has died down. On certain games, they'll be up for it. They'll be bouncing on Wednesday. I have no doubt about it. But it's definitely changed. It's definitely changed. I'm not sure what I put that to. I put it down to a little bit, and people seem to forget this because everyone puts rose-tinted glasses on. It was a little bit like that under the Keegan era, which people seem to forget on certain occasions where they expected just Newcastle to rock up and turn teams over 4 and 5-0. And if it didn't happen, the ground went quiet. So people need to take off some of their sort of rose-coloured glasses and sort of remember that wasn't always the case. But yes, it's definitely changed. I think the fan bases around the country are changing. I mean, Anfield's got a terrible reputation for it. They all come and sing "You Never Walk Alone," and then you can hear a single hand clap it sometimes in the game. So it's not just us; it's right across the board. How they combat that, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind, I'm in my mid-50s, and I know I don't look at maybe early 60s. Some of you are thinking, but I'm probably the average age in terms of where I sit. And it's the fact that we're all of a certain age as well, maybe. Certainly different to when you have to stand during the match. And don't get me wrong, you couldn't pay me to go and stand at the match. If it was standing only, I wouldn't go. My knee couldn't cope with it and I wouldn't go. So I'm not one of these people who look forward to all that sort of thing. I'm happy to sit. Thank you very much. I do like to sing along occasionally as well. I always clap during the match and always do bits and bobs. It's dead quiet where we sit, if I'm being honest, in the East Stand. But the average age has something to do with it. And it really saddens me. And I see this over and over again. And hopefully, if we get a new ground, which I think we will, there will be a section in the ground that caters and allows younger fans to come in and give them an opportunity. And obviously, the young'uns will bring along a fair bit of the singing as well, and give everybody the opportunity to come. I don't want to just see a whole ground full of 55-year-old people, men and women, I want to see a range of sort of younger people in all ages covered for, and it's not the case at the match. The only time you see that is when you see cup games, like the League Cup, for example. There's loads of little kids along, and I love it. I think it's great, seeing families coming in, and it's fabulous. The atmosphere starts lifting up a little bit as well. You can hear it. But at the minute, it's flat because I think people are expecting Newcastle just to turn up and go, oh, well, Fulham, we'll do them. That's easy. 3 points. And the rock up expecting to win. And it's when you play Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, the so-called big boys, that the atmosphere has lifted because there's a bit of anticipation and what the fans are unsure. Whereas when we turn up against Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, everyone expects us just to sort of turn up and beat them. And that's clearly not the case at all. It's clearly not the case at all.
Has it surprised you that our home, we've lost more games at home now than we have away this season?
Yeah, it's absolutely flipped. It's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Actually, I can't quite get my head around it. Because we were so strong at home last year, and we were terrible away last year. We've already won more games away this year than we had the whole of last year. We've still got like just under half a season left. So I'm hoping that we can rectify that soon and turn things around. I don't understand it. It's not that I think players are scared of playing at home. I don't think that's the case at all. I'm just unsure about what it may be. I genuinely don't know. I haven't got a clue is the honest answer. What makes it that way? It might come back to the whole lack of what we've got on the bench. Can I add one other point there as well? Go for it, mate. I don't like Eddie Howe. His subs the other day were terrible again. We were only a goal behind and he's thrown on 4 or 5 players. And I just think that's nuts. Be very specific and just switch one or something, Don't just move everybody around because that's just crazy. And everyone's running around looking to see what they have to do. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, certainly by all means have a plan B. But don't have a plan B where you're having about 5 players all coming on and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, and that's disappointing. So
yeah, it is a very strange situation at Newcastle. The richest team in the world, inverted commas. It is though. It's a champagne club on beer wages at the minute. It's a strange scenario, strange situation, but one which won't change, I'm afraid, by moaning and groaning on social media and moaning and groaning and sitting on your hands at the match. And of course, Wednesday night, tomorrow night is a big match, and one where everybody has to really, to a man and to a woman, to get behind that Newcastle United team.
Can I add as well? I hope they do a minute's applause for Alan Shoulder at the beginning of the game as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that before we bring Rob in. Yeah, the passing of Alan Shoulder, we covered it, of course, on Sunday with Joe Allen, who was a good friend of Alan. Likewise was I. What's your feeling?
Yeah, well, I saw him obviously because my first season was the 80-81 season. So I've seen him a number of times. We'd sold Peter With at that point. You get rid of Peter With and his little sweatbands and that. What does he do? He goes and joins Aston Villa and wins the European Cup. It's got Frank Clark written all over it, hasn't it? And so you had that big man, little man sort of scenario. For that season or whatever it was, I think it might have just been a season. They were electric, weren't they? Peter With was great in the air. But yeah, Shoulder, a good little player, wasn't he? He was only like 5'5" or something, and he just had so much energy. And he was, people need to get. I can't remember. Did he replace, or was he replaced by Bobby Shinton? I can't remember which way it went now. It's such a long time ago. But
yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, he was just a good, all-out, energetic player, and as you say, he came from the lower leagues as well. And it did really, really well. We've not had that many sort of players who've come from that sort of background. Obviously had Chrissy Waddle, and did Steve Carney come from that same team as well?
Steve Carney did as well. Yeah, Peter Cartwright came from non-league. Chrissy Waddle came from non-league. There's a few. We had this on Sunday. People were chucking it into the chat, but yeah, Steve Carney came from there. Yeah.
I remember my granddad went to the game at St James's Park in '78, and yeah, so I remember my granddad going to the game as well when I was a kid. But it's a remarkable experience in terms of what you think Blythe did, of course. But yeah, it's all commiserations, obviously, to Alan's family. He deserves a huge round of applause. Gave everything. Played under a dour time for Newcastle United under the Sergeant Major for a bit, and then I think obviously Arthur Cox took over. But yeah, good player. Happy memories. Nice man, obviously. So yeah, and let's give a round of applause tomorrow.
Halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management.
Find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. A big thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. All excursions included. Find them at their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email them at beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. You can find them at their website, media-arts.co.uk. If you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and your other podcast providers. If you want to help support the channel, hit the thumb up, which is the like button. Click share to share to your other social medias. Click join to join the channel, and click the subscribe button. We've also got links in our description for buy us a coffee and to be a Patreon member. Some events coming up: an afternoon with Sir Les Ferdinand, 6th of April, 12 till 4. Tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. No Covers takes place at the Clooney, Lilac Lane, Ryder and the Chris Norris Band. Tickets from theclooney.com or by telephone in 0191 230 4474. An evening with Steve Howie and Steve Watson, hosted by Joe Allen, takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 27th of June. Tickets for that are from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on the 23rd of January 2026. Box office 0844 246 1000 or website tynetheatreandoperahouse.tv. An evening with Bad Manners takes place on Friday the 30th of January 2026 and tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainers 1992 to 1997, Kevin Keegan's Legacy, available from newcastlelegends.com.
And it's a big welcome to Rob for Rock and Rob's album review. How are you, Rob?
Very good, Steve. Very good, Sid. How are you both?
Good to see you, Rob.
And
All
you
good,
too.
mate. Album you're not
Yeah.
reviewing this week is a little what of what you fancy from Shag Connor and the Carrot Crunchers.
Unbelievable.
Recorded at the Globe, Newton, St. Lo, Somerset. Wow, it's amazing that. And EMI as well brought that out. Fantastic. Okay, you're not reviewing that. So what are you reviewing?
No, this week's a pleasure, actually, to review Sid's album.
Long time ago.
Fresh as on.
Well, it's Sid, what year was it? Because I've seen two dates, 2006, 2008. But,
2008.
Okay. And do you do vocals on all the songs?
I do, yeah.
Very versatile. I'll say that. Very, very good. And it's actually the third time I listened to it. It was really so much better. I listened to it twice yesterday and once today. So yeah, this is obviously our Sid on vocals and harmonica, Scott Henderson guitar, Neil Hall on guitar, Richard Smith bass, Alan Law keys, Kevin Doherty, drums and percussion, as Sid's mentioned to me, sadly passed away. But you know, his spirit will live on, and so will his music, so will his art and craft. So yeah, there was 2 covers on this. That's What I'll Do by Robert Cray, 1992. Talking Women Blues by Albert Collins, and that was released in 1978. So yeah, it opens up with Big Hip Girl, really good opener. Like I say, I've listened to the album twice when I've done this review. This is a good foot tapping tune. Nice, nifty, sharp guitaring on this. A very good organic sound. Nice piano parts on this, and I do like the mouth organ, the harmonica on it as well. You know, Freewheeling Man. This is like classic blues guitar intro. It's quite a smoky, atmospheric feel to it for me. I do like the drums. The snare definitely reminded me of Stuart Copeland of The Police. It's backbeat sort of drum. Yeah, it definitely did. And to me, it had a bit of a cooler shaker feel to it. Sort of obviously, I think they were the 90s indie band at the time. Again, I like the warmth. There was a keyboard sort of piano part. I don't know if it's keyboard or piano, but it's a really warmth to it. It's really good. Voodoo Queen reminded me of a single guy being a barfly sitting at a bar somewhere. It's sort of like jazz blues. This is the jazz blues that I like. I do listen to a lot of blues. My best friend Paul, he sort of manages the Edinburgh Jazz and Blues Club in Edinburgh, so I do pick up a lot on the blues stuff. But this is the sort of blues that I like. Really good electric slide on the guitar on this one as well. Really interesting. So it's something different, but it's not on every song. There's something different on every song. You've got women, brilliant guitar solo on this song again. Solid drums and the bass holding this one together nicely. A really good backbone for the band. You know, Honeymaker, I think it's a steel guitar. I'm not sure, but it's got that organic, sharp clarity to it. The vocals are sort of dirty, gravelly on this one. I really like the chorus in this one. Yeah, it's quite fun. No, but that's a good thing, Sid, because that's why I was asking if there's more than one singer, because I couldn't tell. It's a brilliant thing. It just goes to show how versatile. And I was expecting to hear some influences, and there is 2 I've picked up on from your vocals. Yeah, again, this is jazz blues finger snapping tune, really good. Then you've got That's What I'll Do. This reminded me a little bit slightly of Dr. Jazz by Squeeze. I think it was a song that Jules Holland sung. It's on the Frank album. Really talented piano playing on this one. Really, really good. Yeah, excellent. You've got Spam. Eric Clapton-ish for me. Nice guitar effects as well. I don't know, obviously, all the names of the effects that go on guitars, that sort of thing. But again, I could definitely hear a strong Elvis Costello influence on this one. This sort of stuck out to me. I could hear it, and I did wonder, because you do talk about Elvis Costello, and it sometimes happens. I could hear it. It was brilliant, but it was natural. It wasn't nothing put on, nothing forced. It was just your natural, your tone, how you sing and how you speak as well. You've got Come Back Baby, really good. I like the mouth organ on this one. There's not a lot of songs that can pull it off, but this certainly does. This and Poison Street by New Model Army. Brilliant. It's not overdone. It's, to me, this like a jam, like a free-for-all jam. It just seems like good fun doing this, recording this song especially. You got Train to Wilderness. Again, I'd say if this was put out in the 1990s, it's sort of like more influence. It's sort of like a student dance floor tune. The piano part was that, remember that, I don't know rave bands, techno bands, but an example would be Step On by Happy Mondays. You know, that sort of dancey, you know, that sort of thing. And I think that would have a great place in time, early to mid 90s. That would have been a decent single, actually. They've got Talking Women Blues. It does exactly what it says on the tin. You know, breakfast, dinner, lunch, and tea is one of the lines in this one. So for me, it's one of the lyrics, one of the lines on this song. It's certainly full and filling on this album with no additives. Really good song. Track 12, the final song, is Falling Down. So I think it's like a acoustic guitar solo, acoustic sort of song. Only thing that I would like to hear, but again, this is just my preference. It's not a reflection of the album. The vocals pushed, but that's just my thoughts on it. But it's really good. like I've listened to it again today. It was better today than listening to it for the first 2 times. It's really good. It seemed like a good sort of fun album. I think you all enjoyed the whole journey of the album from start to finish. But it's good. It's fun. It's honest. It's, you know, it is what blues is. It's like short stories. And what formats is this available on? And I definitely, for the influences I hear, definitely Elvis Costello, definitely Colin Moulding from XTC, and it's getting an 8.5 out of 10. And I really sincerely enjoyed listening to it. I enjoyed, sincerely, genuinely enjoyed listening to it. So what formats is it on? Is it just download or sort of hard copy?
Just download. I think it's on like on the usual places. Yeah, on all the sites really. I know for some bizarre reason, I think one of them might have taken the covers off, but yeah.
Yeah. And where the cover? Where was that? Where was that taken?
Is it Tantobi? We had asked for permission for me to walk down the train track and get the photograph taken.
Right. That was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. But that one, it just seemed like a jam session. You know,
yeah, one of them definitely was. One of them with the comeback baby was made up on made up on the spot there and then. What was nice is when we were recording, we had a couple of days off, and the Arctic Monkeys came along and did a session there for Radio 6, I think it was, and they had to listen to a few of our tracks and really liked it, so that was quite nice. I mean, it's just a good blues album. It's nothing special. It's just that's all it is.
It is. It's good.
Thunderbirds is who our main influence was, without a shadow of a doubt. So
it's a good album, and even the production was good as well. It was like a good it was like a warm. There was no like tinny high end. It was just really nicely put together. The vocals, there was nothing in it.
Blast. Good studios, Blast. I think New York Dolls and that did albums there as well, and it's good studio.
Yeah, really liked it. Yeah, but
long time ago.
Yeah. So has anyone ever said that to you about your influences being like?
Yeah, a little bit. We had once had Steve Marriott once and various other things. So it's it just depends on what you're doing. But yeah, definitely.
It was really, really good.
Robert, it's cool. Great stuff. Good mark. A good mark out of 10.
Yeah.
What do you
bring? I'll take that all day long.
What are you bringing it, Sid?
So I thought I'd go for something totally different then, and I've gone with Killers by Iron Maiden. So, so I thought I'd go down a totally different street here. Released in 1981. This is Maiden's second album within 9 months. And 5 of the songs go back as far as 1976 with their first singer. I didn't realize that by the time they had Paul Di'Anno, he was like the 3rd singer or something. Yeah. So they'd already had a couple of singers beforehand. It's the first album to feature Adrian Smith on guitar, who's fantastic, by the way, on this. Paul Di'Anno's last album, sadly, in my opinion. I really liked them. And, of course, Maiden were right at the front of all the new wave of British heavy metal front, along with, bands like Saxon and all of those, and, the Tigers and all those different bands. I loved all that scene. That's great. It's produced by Martin Birch, which I think is really interesting because Martin Birch, of course, is the guy behind bands like Deep Purple, Rainbow, Wishbone Ash, and you can hear all those influences on this album to a point. The album kicks off with The Ides of March, which basically is a song influenced heavily by a Samson song, so they actually give songwriting credits to members of Samson, which obviously ironically features Bruce Dickinson. And it's just an instrumental. It's great, though. And then we have Wrathchild, which is just fantastic. It's got a really driving bass. All the songs are, by the way, written by Steve Harris, who is the main man in Iron Maiden. You might have seen him before on TV. He wears I think he's got West Ham written on his bass and all the rest. He's a big hammer. So Wrathchild's brilliant, really powerful, about looking for his biological father, the character in the story. A lot of songs on this album are about killers, hence the title. So we've got Murders in Rue Morgue, inspired by the Edgar Allan Poe story of the same title. Got twin guitars on it. It's very Lizzie, actually, a bit on this one. The Lizzie influence is quite clear on this album to me. But it's very heavy, great song, absolutely great song. Another Life seems like a teen suicide song, which is a bit grim. It's got this awful tom drum opening. It's really terrible. But then it moves on. And again, it's got that sort of Lizzie feel to it. I like it. The next song, for some bizarre reasons, called Genghis Khan, and it's an instrumental, and I have no idea why they called it Genghis Khan. I haven't got a clue. But when I used to rehearse with bands in the early 80s in my rock band days, there was always, when you're in some rehearsal room, there'd always be a band nearby, and they'd often do Genghis Khan in the studio. It's always one of those songs you'd always hear. Innocent Exile's next, about someone running from the law because they're a killer, which, as I say, is a common theme. It's got a bit of a Deep Purple sort of classic rock vibe on this song, I feel. I love the drums on it, actually, ironically, and it really swings as well on that song, which is unusual. Killers, co-written by Paul Di'Anno, is a masterpiece in my eyes. It's clearly about a killer, and it's got some sort of Dostoevsky links to it, and of like Crime and Punishment. It's brilliant. It's just really heavy and just fantastic. I love all the rhythmic changes. Prodigal Son, a bit more laid back. This one's got acoustic guitars, got like a mystical horror sort of references to the Lamia, which Peter Gabriel uses as well on The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Purgatory, well, the title tells you what the song's about. It's a rockier tune, great guitar. And then finally, the last song, Drift Out. Again, that Lizzie opening twin guitar sound. More of a traditional rock song, but bizarrely about a person who goes from town to town. So think of it as like the rock version of The Littlest Hobo, is what I've written down. It's that sort of thing. But Killers is one of my favorite Maiden albums. I think it's brilliant. And I'm one of those rare people who I actually think I prefer Paul Di'Anno as the singer for Iron Maiden. So there we have it. I put it out there. Maiden really at this point mixed punk and metal. They were right in the middle at this point, you know, and you could see both sets of fans going to see them at this before they turned into full-on, what I would describe as prog metal, is what they eventually turned into, like a prog metal band, is because all the songs now are about 10 minutes long. They're all great, don't get me wrong, but they're all long. At this point, they were still 3 and 4 minutes long. So Killers, classic album, 5-star album in my opinion. And I thought I'd go along with the Killer theme for my film choice. And yes, it's that 10 years, awful 10 years link. And I've gone with Frenzy by Alfred Hitchcock. It's his last great film, made in 1972. Set in London. Michael Caine was originally offered the role and he turned it down as a necktie murderer because he thought he didn't want to play an immoral type of character, which is a bit bizarre, but bear in mind he'd been in Get Caught a couple of years earlier, which I don't quite get. But Barry Foster did accept the role and did a fantastic job on it. The film is really dark, really brooding. Foster's character, who's a killer, he's very popular, he's very likable, he's a very affable sort of guy, and you know, he seems like very jovial, but of course he's got that dark side to him, and he's a sort of necktie killer. The film is set in Covent Garden, and Hitchcock was brought up there, and I think his dad may have had something to do with like fruit and veg and stuff. And so this film captures the last moments of when Covent Garden was a place that did all of the fruit and veg and all the market stalls, all the rest, before it's changed. Now it's all very sort of trendy and that. But at this point, it captures a moment in time. It's like a little time capsule, a bit like Get Carter is in some respects. It captures that little moment in time.
Yeah.
It's a great film. Some of the shots in it are amazing. There's a dolly shot in it, which is where he's got the camera and he drags the camera out slowly and follows the killer for about a minute. It's a very clever shot. It's beautifully done, very tastefully done. The cast's stellar. You got Billy Whitelaw in it. You got Anna Massey, Bernard Cribbins, Jean Marsh. There's some really good actors in this. It's pacey. It's a great late night thriller. All right, I can't recommend it enough. As I say, Hitchcock died in the 80s, but this is his last great film for me, Frenzy. It's a top draw film.
Classic film, like.
Never seen it, go out and check it out. I love it.
It is absolute classic. Love the link as well with Killers. I'm going to quickly run through my albums that I've listened to this week. I was recommended a Sad Cafe one, but I'm using Apple Music to listen. It's easier for me. So I had to go with the best of Sad Cafe for the person who suggested this. It's a mixed bag for me, this. Everyday Hurts is a classic, of course. Let Love Speak for Itself and Sail On with the other standouts on there. But I've got to be honest, I'm not a big Sad Cafe fan. It was quite a hard listen for me, that one, compared to some of the other stuff I've listened to. I did like this. I'm going to be honest. I didn't think I was going to like Jethro Tull, Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. But some classics like Crazed Institution, Salamander, and I loved Big Dip. I listened to it twice. I loved it that much. I thought, what a great song that is, by the way. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. Just listen to it for the lyrics alone. Make it well worth a listen. But yeah, what a great tune. This one was probably my album of the week. OK Computer. It was brilliant. I listened to it again twice on the day. I hadn't listened to it, and I thought I had listened to it, but I had to go through the tracks. And yeah, I hadn't. Paranoid Android, Karma Police, No Surprises, Lucky, take it or leave it, honestly. There's some absolutely brilliant tracks on there. So if you haven't listened to that, please do. REM. Listen to a lot of their albums. Of course, Automatic for the People is one that most people probably have in their collection. Murmur, one that I'd never listened to. And again, loved it. The very early days of REM. Pilgrimage, Talk About the Passion, Shaken Through, take your pick. It's as good as any other REM album. And again, one well worth listening to. A lot of my older friends were delighted that I'd picked this one this week. Joni Mitchell. And Blue is special. Loved River. I loved Carey and My Old Man, who incidentally suggested this. And last this week is this one. I'd listened to Breakfast Across America by Supertramp, but I'd never listened to it even in the quietest moments. Fool's Overture, superb. Didn't realise they'd done that. I'd heard that so many times and didn't realise it was Supertramp. Give a little bits on there as well. And the title track, Even in the Quietest Moments, is well worth listening to as well. But that was my album choices this week. Thoroughly enjoyed them. I am still on my challenge, and we'll update you on how I'm getting on next week with my choices. But that is the end of our music section. Rob, thank you as always for putting your little decorating job aside. I'm sure you're going to go back to it now, but thank you for doing that for us today.
Thanks for the review. Very kind. I do appreciate it. Honestly, it's very kind of you.
You're welcome. No, and it was I really enjoyed listening to it. Yeah, really did.
Top man, great to see you, Rob. And best of luck. You're moving house again, I know. So good luck with that, mate, and good luck with everything with what's going on at the minute. Everything sounds as if it's going your way. So we'll see you next week, pal.
Yeah.
See you later, mate.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Top man, Rob. Great to have him on, and a wonderful section. Don't forget, if you've got a song for Rob, drop it in the comments underneath, and he will review that album. Okay, looking ahead to the Arsenal game, which takes place tomorrow night. Newcastle United 2-0 up, of course, from the first leg in the Carabao Cup semi-final. Arsenal, of course, coming off the back of a wonderful 5-1 win against Manchester City at the weekend. Newcastle coming off the back of a 2-1 defeat at home to Fulham. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff. It's live on Sky Sports, and the winners will face either Liverpool or Spurs at Wembley on Sunday, March the 16th, with a kickoff time to be announced. Should the aggregate score be a draw after 90 minutes, an additional 30 minutes will be played before a penalty shootout is required. An additional substitute can be used during extra time. Were Newcastle to reach the final? What's that, sorry?
Makes no difference to us, does it? Not with our bench.
Were Newcastle to reach the final, no player bans would be imposed as a result of accumulated bookings. Only a rerun of the Premier League red card misfortune that befell Nick Pope 2 years ago would result in any suspensions. Arsenal have sold their 4,883 allocation. Team news, early team news from us on this pre-record on a Monday. Harvey Barnes and Jamal Lascelles remain out. There is a doubt over Joe Linton. By the time this goes out, that question will have been answered at the press conference. Callum Wilson has returned to training, but it's unclear whether he'll be included in the matchday squad. Arsenal ahead of their trip to Tyneside. They've got Gabriel Jesus, Bukayo Saka and Ben White all unavailable for this game. But they have successfully appealed against the red card shown to Miles Lewis-Skelly against Wolves, wiping out the suspension that would have sidelined him at St James's Park. And he looks a good player, by the way. Not great news, I don't think, on the refereeing front. Simon Hooper, a fourth appointment of the season for him following the 2-1 loss at Chelsea, the 4-2 defeat at Brentford and the 2-0 away win at Manchester United. In the Premier League, his last game in charge of Gallagher was the 4-1 Premier League victory against Chelsea in November 23. There's worse referees, but there's better referees. I'm not 100% convinced on this. John Brooks is on VAR, so VAR is in operation in the semi-final second leg. Okay, Sid, over to you, mate. How do you see this going? 2-0 up. Can we get through to Wembley? And if we can, how we're going to do it in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course we can. Of course we can. What I will say is Newcastle will score. Newcastle will score on Wednesday. I have no doubt about that. So Arsenal are going to need three goals to get into a sort of the last 30 minutes. So it's a funny one, isn't it? Because Newcastle, obviously, the confidence will be a little bit lower, but the crowd will be bouncing. I know people talk about the PSG game, but I think the best atmosphere I've witnessed in the last few years was the semi-final of the League Cup. I thought that was the best atmosphere probably for 20 years that I'd heard at the ground. And if they can replicate that, I think when Newcastle's rocking, there is no better place to be. And I think it could be, obviously, I think the place will be electric. The thing is to make sure Arsenal don't score early. But if they do, just accept it, take it on the chin, but know you're going to score. I mean, we will score. I'll be amazed if we don't score. I'll be amazed if we don't score. I think Arsenal will score. I'm absolutely convinced they'll score. It's just making sure that it's not too early. And if Newcastle get the first goal, then that's game over as far as I'm concerned. You know, and you could argue, and I would totally understand it if Eddie Howe then just decides to go 10 at the back for the rest of the match. And I have no, you know what? I don't care. I have no problems with that whatsoever. You know, I have no problem with that whatsoever. You know, we're obviously used to it and we can cope with it. Is the way I see it. So it's up to Eddie Howe. It's more importantly though, he doesn't play. It's up to the players. So it's up to them, for some of them to pull the socks up, have a long hard in the mirror and think, right, this is my chance. This is my chance to go down in sport and greatness for the rest of their lives at this club by getting to a final and winning it. Because I think if we get to a final and play Liverpool, actually bizarrely, I think we'll win it. I'm less certain about Spurs because I have no idea what Spurs team turn up. But I'm more confident bizarrely if we play Liverpool because I know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get. And the law of averages says to me, we're going to beat them at some point soon. So we'll have played them in the league at that point at Anfield, where you never win. You're lucky to win a throw-in. And so I think we'll actually, you know, I really fancy it. So it's down to us. And you know what? I want to shut the press up as well, because they'll be wetting their pants if Arsenal won this, wouldn't they? You know, that would be, this, that, and the other, Arsenal, blah, 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 blah. We'd never hear the end of it. So it's down to the players to prove who they are, because I'll put this out now as well. If they don't, all right, and they capitulate, then it's time to change the whole squad as far as I'm concerned, because that tells me that they buckle under pressure, and that's not good enough. That then tells you that this squad is not capable of coping, you know, when it comes down to it. So what's the point? So you have to move players on. Unfortunately, I suspect Joe Linton will be out. You know, walking around with a big sort of leg thing on is a bit, unless it's a double bluff, but I don't see it to be so, because he's not been the same player as you see for the last 2 or 3 games. He's just looked a bit short. And the fact that he's been putting in, he could have easily got a yellow card much earlier on Saturday, I think is the phrase. So he's been a little bit short in terms of his tackling. So I suspect he won't be in, and if it is, you play Miley for me. But I think you play Longstaff as the runner. You play you play Tonali exactly where he is, and you play Bruno exactly where he goes as well. And that would be the only change. Although, as I say, I would personally I would change the right back position and take Tino out. That's what I would do. Whether he does that is another matter. I just like that idea of that voice at the back, and that the defense needs telling and putting in place a little bit and more. And I think Shaw's been terrible, actually. I think he's been terrible. And I've already said this, I would let his contract run out at the end of the season. Wish him all the best, because he's been one of the best players we've ever had, in my opinion. But time has caught up with him, and you get a new player in, and I would play Botman. I'd start Botman and Burn, personally. And that was the duo that we had down there as well, if I remember rightly. I would revert back to that. I mean, if it's possible to revert back to that team, I suspect that's what he'll do.
Time to bring Pope back in?
No, just a
I
brag.
knew you were going to say that.
No. What's he done though? He's done nothing wrong. And he instills confidence. He's a terrific keeper. I'd have Pope on the bench, and if it comes down to penalties, you put Pope in goal because his penalty saving record is just absolutely outstanding.
I think he might
on pens.
I think he might make changes. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Time has beaten us, Sid. Though, so you're going for Newcastle to get through.
I'm going for us to get through. Whether we win is another matter. We might get beat 2-1, or we might draw 2-2, but we'll go through. So
good stuff. Let's hope you're right. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to Rob and thanks to Sid. Songs from the Attic is where you can find him on YouTube. Go and subscribe to that, and we will be back next week. Take care.
Take care, folks. Bye-bye.